this is the foundation for us, right? How to make a function and use it. Now I want to show you how can I use it to make my life a little better, right? And the way I want to show you is, you remember that we had done this code before, and we had done this code to compute how long it takes to walk across the USA. So I'm going to do the same code, but this time I'm going to do it using function. Okay, so let's look at that code again and see how functions can make my life easy. So you see, first thing I do, okay, so this is something, you look at this code and you say, okay, what's going on in the beginning? In the beginning, I'm trying to compute the width of the USA, right? I'm trying to compute the width of USA, and the width of USA is computed by multiplying a time with a speed, right? So I can make a function that computes time multiplied by speed. So I call that distance traveled. You see, I took USA out of the function because I can use this distance traveled function even if it's not USA, right? It's, as long as I have a time and a speed, I can always compute distance. So that's the first function that I write, and I want you guys to pay attention. It is important to strip out USA, right? Because if I had hard-coded, say, distance traveled or size of USA, it's restrictive. So whenever we create functions, even though we have written some code to motivate a function, we should generalize and say, how can I use this function in a general way? Okay, so the first thing, the first function has been created. So I defed it, I gave it a name, I called it distance traveled, and it takes the travel time and the speed. I made everything in hours in this case, and then I multiplied the two to get the distance traveled. Hopefully that is sensible. The next thing we do in this code to, I hope all of you have seen this before, so I'm not going through the logic in detail. So the next thing we want to do is to find the width of USA, is after we found the width of USA, is to convert it to feet. So this now is a conversion function, and converting something from miles to feet is a general capability. Nothing to do with USA again. We used it for the US. So the next function I write is again independent of US, right? It's just conversion function. It's miles to feet. And if you give me the distance in feet, I will convert it to miles and return that value. Again, see how useful this becomes, right? Miles to feet. Now let's see what other function can we create. The last one is I was choosing to use the size of my step and figure out, you know, given a distance in feet, how many steps do I need? So what is this function? What is this computation actually doing? It's taking the total number of steps in feet, so total distance in feet, and then it's taking the size of each step in feet and dividing the two. So again, I think for a minute and I create a function here and I call it distance to steps, right? And it takes the distance in feet and the size of a step. To be precise, I should put also in feet. I won't do it right now, but you guys can do it too for yourself. Size of step in feet, and I'm going to divide it inside the function. Again, you see all these three functions we created so far are general purpose, right? Whenever we need to convert a distance measured in feet into number of steps, I can always use this function. Okay, and the last one which we did here was once we got the number of steps, we wanted to figure out how many days will it take for me to walk this number of steps, right? So then we said, can we calculated that, right? We took the number of steps per day and we divided the total number of steps and divided by number of steps per day. So we can write a function now to do it, and this function it converts steps into days, right? It says total steps, and then the second parameter is how many steps can I take in a day, and it just does the division. Now the important thing I want you to also notice here is, look at how many conversion functions we have. 1, 2, 3. It's interesting, right? When we started to write this code, we thought we were solving a kind of problem. We didn't realize that it really was all about converting one quantity into another quantity into another quantity. And these conversions, if they become clear in our minds, the solution just pops out. All I have to do is connect these conversions to each other, right? So let's just now solve the problem. Now that we got all the functions we need, we go and solve the problem, right? So we say, okay, the width of USA. Now we get USA specific information. What is specific about the USA? It takes 6 hours traveling at 500 miles per hour to fly across the US, right? So I use the distance traveled function to compute the width of USA. The next thing I want to do is to convert this into feet. So this width of USA is in miles. I want to convert to feet. So I use the function miles to feet, and I pass in the width of USA into this function, and now I get the width of USA in feet, right? And the next one is I need to convert into steps, and I choose 2.5 feet for the size of my step, and then I use the distance to steps function, right? And that will allow me to convert it as needed. I'm almost home, right? I have the number of steps. Now I have the total number of steps. Now I need to figure out how many days it will take. So I need my last conversion function to convert steps into days. And here, the number of steps I take in a day, I have the freedom to choose whether I walk for 8 hours or 24 hours, right? So I do this carefully and feed this into the last conversion function, and then I'm done, right? And then if you run this whole thing, we'll get the same answer we got before. Okay, that was a long exercise, a very important exercise. And this exercise also shows the point I made earlier. Sometimes it's easier for some people, especially new people, new to programming, students who are new to programming, that you think in these steps. And there's no problem. Thinking in steps is already an advanced skill. But to become a more advanced programmer or a strong programmer, we need to be able to convert all these steps into beautiful functions. And now when you look at these functions, you can see what's beautiful about them is we can reuse them in different contexts, in other contexts, right? We can reuse them, we can test each one of them. Every benefit that I mentioned earlier is now on display for you. So hopefully that was illustrative. Of course, now you can see also why I said this will take a little time, right? So when you read this next time, I want you to just review this, right? I want you to notice all these concepts. I don't want to read them all out to you. So take some time, do this exercise. You can just delete everything that's on this panel and rewrite it. See if you create the same functions. See if you create different functions, then we can talk about them as well, right? Because if you reason slightly differently, you can create other types of functions. There's nothing God-given about what I've done. Okay, this was just illustrative. The day you can start by writing the function stubs, as soon as you see the problem, I think you've made a significant step forward. But it might take a little while, and we can just be patient with it.